What's up, everybody? Welcome to Own the Chaos. My name is Brad. That is Fat Man Zoom. The stock market is crazy and chaotic. We made it our mission to help you own it. And Fat Man Zoom, we got a great topic for today. Why don't you go ahead and let everybody know what it's about?
Yeah, so today we're doing the top 5 casino stocks. So typically we'll do like maybe a top 5 stocks of the week, month, a little bit different. We're going to take casino. Obviously, we've talked about sports betting. Obviously, we talk about gambling. I wanted you to rank the 5 stocks. So guys, make sure you stick around. Brad will rank his top 5 casino stocks in order of conviction. But first, I kind of just want to set the stage as far as it's concerned. And really, we're looking at the next 6 months. So we have a lot of things to be bullish about as far as casinos are concerned, gambling is concerned, sports betting are concerned. So in this list, I've just asked you to look at brick and mortar. But really, the next 6 months, we have the Super Bowl and really leading into March Madness. So I'm asking you, until March Madness, which ends in April, which order would you put them in? So I'm excited about it. We obviously have some international, some domestic conversations, but I need to know, has your sentiment changed with everything going on with Penn? Has your sentiment changed with Macau? These are all questions we're going to answer. But first, I want you guys to make sure you hit that like button, give it the thumbs up if you like the content. And if you're interested in learning more, hit that subscribe and notification bell. All right, so go ahead.
We're going to finish each other's sentence. Yeah, so it's been interesting, right? So you had mentioned my conviction on Penn, and we'll get to that in a second because believe it or not, that's actually not number one on this list.
Okay.
Spoiler alert. But my I guess least conviction, the stock that I had the least conviction on is Las Vegas Sands. And you brought this up just before as we were kind of like researching our topic here, and that they no longer have any U.S.
That's wild
properties. It's Las Vegas Sands.
Yeah.
It's in their brand, and they're no longer in Vegas. So very interesting stuff. And for that reason, because of their exposure to Macau at this point, I would say that I'm probably the least bullish on Las Vegas Sands in general.
That makes sense. I don't know the sort of the backstory behind this move. Obviously, global growth, international growth is important. But as we think about the reopening, we've talked about travel. Domestic travel is booming and will continue to boom. And Las Vegas is going to be on fire by all accounts. And so they're already at pre-pandemic levels, and they still haven't had conventions come back. So the upside to Las Vegas is huge. And I agree with you. This seems like a no-brainer as far as the number 5 position, because you're not going to benefit any off of the boom as far as what we experience domestically.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the chart looks okay. It's not obviously has been performing compared to its other counterparts such as MGM, Wynn, and even Caesars. So I mean, and rightfully so, right? I mean, if the conviction to Macau is going to be virtually 100%, and obviously they're going to have the sports betting side on their side as well. Maybe that's kind of the argument that some folks who are bullish on Las Vegas Sands might make. Nevertheless, the stock obviously reflects that. And so looking at this, I think that the 50-day moving average, the fact that it's holding there, I guess is promising, but this will probably be the one, in my opinion, that has the least amount of upside. Next for me is going to be something that maybe we haven't really talked about a lot on this channel, and that's Caesars. Caesars comes in at ranked number 4 for me. I like Caesars, especially from a brick and mortar side. I think that the stock itself is going to do pretty well overall, especially because as we were talking about, Vegas really kind of coming back, demand's going to be monstrous, and all of the casinos have really kind of been talking about that as we reopen. Here's the other thing about Caesars that I'm bullish on, and that is their sports betting side. They've created a sports betting app. They're really going all in on this, no pun intended, and dumping a lot of money into this. They pledged $1 billion in marketing towards their sports betting app for the year of 2022, which is monstrous. But I think, Fat Man Zoom, this is also, in my opinion, it could be a bearish sentiment that you could give on something like this. If you're going to spend $1 billion on marketing for just your sports betting app, what kind of return are you going to get on that, and how soon? And I think that that's something that certainly worries me. We've seen this from FanDuel and from DraftKings as well, that the house has been losing here lately. And I think that if you're spending $1 billion on something, your investors are going to want to see some sort of return and in short order as well. Now, there's going to be some long-term investors in there for sure, but I'm not quite so sure the ROI, especially in this highly competitive space, is going to be worth it. That's a ton of money, man.
Yeah, I think that amounts to about double DraftKings spend. And as you mentioned, DraftKings is known to spend a lot on their marketing.
Yeah.
And so that's a reasonable point. That makes sense. I do feel I feel there is a case for Caesars, and I feel like if that's the one you want, then I would go for it. But I would agree that that could be disconcerting. That could be disconcerting. But now here's the thing: as long as you're showing that as either giving returns or you're skimming back on that, I would say the next 6 months, I don't think it would be as big of an issue. But I think that would be more of a longer term issue. That certainly some point you got to show something for it.
Yeah, for sure. So there is Caesars coming in at number 4. Number 3 is going to be Wynn Resorts.
Mm-hmm.
This is another one that has a lot of exposure to Macau. Around 2/3 of their revenue is coming from Macau.
Mm-hmm.
So there is definitely a lot of risk involved with that. But I think Wynn is certainly working towards maybe having a little bit more of a balance as far as that's concerned. I think that they've realized, especially with some of the regulations and restrictions that are coming down in Macau, China's been cracking down on a lot of this stuff. And so I think that Wynn is recognizing that. They recognize that in their latest earnings report. And I think that Wynn in general may because of that, because of the balance that they're looking to create a little bit more of, that I like Wynn more so over obviously in the Las Vegas Sands and Caesars at this point.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit more about Macau, but I think it's more of a macro conversation. So, guys, make sure you stick around till the end, because I want to ask about Macau. If you think how you think it'll come back, and if you think there's other opportunities to take over. But before we get into the final two, I do want to invite you all out. If you guys are interested in these 5 stocks, we give out a free daily watch list every day before the market opens. 5 stocks that Brad's watching, fundamental technical analysis. If you guys would like that free daily watch list, click on the link in the description. It'll take you to ownthechaos.com. What do we have for our last 2 stocks?
All right. So coming in at number 2 is going to be Penn National. It's not number 1, guys. For those of you who've been following this channel for any length of time, you know that Fatman Zoom and I both love Penn National. I think that I love Penn National more than Fatman Zoom does if we had to take a gander at it. But I think this has been something that's obviously been on a big ass struggle fest. It's down around 25% on the year now, and it's been going through a lot of drama. The stock shot all the way up to around $145 a share after being down just $3 the bottom of the pandemic. Unbelievable move. There's arguments that you can make that maybe this got ahead of itself. But I think there's also a lot to be excited about with Penn. Obviously, the Barstool side of things is a double-edged sword, and we've seen that. The exposure that Penn has to the stoolies is about 75 million strong, which means that they have to spend less on marketing. I think that they can just market directly to the stoolies, and it just goes from there. So they don't have to spend as much as something like a Caesars or DraftKings or some of the other ones. So I think that that's obviously a benefit to them. You have the brick and mortar side. It's the largest regional casino in the country. They don't have any exposure to Macau, which you can make the arguments for both sides on that. But they also have the Barstool Sports Book as well. They're expanding. They just expanded to 3 different states in the last quarter. They also just made the acquisition for the Score. So, I mean, I think there's a lot to be excited about here, but obviously with some of the bad publicity we've gotten with the whole Dave Portnoy drama, there's certainly, like I said, that double-edged sword as far as Penn's concerned.
Yeah, you know, the thing with Penn is maybe it's frustrating for a short time. I do think not only is it down on the year, but since its 52-week highs back in March, it's down nearly 60%. I don't care what anybody says. This is just absolutely ridiculous. And even though there may be some tough sledding, I know we're going to get heat for this, but the reality is, like, I don't want to be out of this for when it moves. And so I think it's ridiculously undervalued. We've talked about profitability. They've decided to go against, dumping a bunch of money and just ad spend. The market, I think, hasn't looked at it appropriately. They haven't looked favorably on that, but like profitability. Yeah. So profitability was pushed out a year, so you could use that as like sort of a knock against it, but it was because of Score acquisition. it was justified by the CEO. So I have no issues with that. I should ask you, how much are you worried about? Is Dave Portnoy at this point a liability for Penn?
It's a great question. I don't think he is. I think you just have to take the good with the bad, and I think that's what Jay Snowden is actually doing with Dave. And I think that they recognize. And Dave's been very upfront and honest about this. He's like, "Listen, I have a past. It's out. It's out there. You know, that's just how I roll." And Jay Snowden took them on anyway. And honestly, I think that's one of the big reasons. So MGM was in the running to acquire Penn as well. And I think that they were just no thanks, for hands off. And that's probably one big reason why was Dave Portnoy. But I think, in my opinion, there's no better media presence as far as the sports betting world's concerned than Barstool. It just doesn't get any bigger than that. And the community that they have and the loyalty they have towards Dave Portnoy is what gives them the competitive advantage.
Yeah. So in 2023, Penn can increase their stake in Barstool, and they'll have controlling interest, which will kind of change the game. Although I think the way their partnership is set up, I don't think it actually is going to matter too much. It's safe to say they're going to execute that.
Yeah,
they're going to take controlling stake of Barstool. I was thinking about this today because that is naturally a bullish thing. Do you think there would be a potential if leading into 2023 there's continued like controversy surrounding Dave Portnoy that maybe that actually would induce a sell-off?
Maybe, but I think that Penn's getting it so cheap.
Yeah,
you know, the acquisition of Barstool is so cheap, especially when you compare it to some of the other mergers and acquisitions that we've seen as of late. This is definitely at a discount for Penn, and I would argue that the score was too, which is why we actually saw Penn go up on that score acquisition, whereas a lot of these acquisitions we seem to come down because investors think that they're overpaying.
Yeah, certainly one to keep an eye on. Might be some tough sledding, as we mentioned, but in the long term, this could be a great opportunity. I want to just continue to load the boat on this.
Yeah. It's really hard not to over leverage yourself in Penn right now. My number one casino stock, gaming stock of probably the next 12 months, I would say, is MGM, Fat Man Zoom. The M in Fat Man Zoom.
Yeah, put that on. Put that on camera. Finally, come to my side. Come to my side.
The stock is incredible. Just looking at the chart, this is by far the strongest mover in the industry. They have the best balance sheet on hand. Their exposure to Macau and the U.S. is nice and balanced.
Yep.
They have huge presence in the sports betting side, and I think they've actually done it the right way. They've been spending a lot. They're still losing money on the sports betting side. It's just like everybody else. But Penn, by the way, is losing the least amount. MGM is probably second or third in that category, but they're still losing money nevertheless.
Yeah.
But I think that they're growing, and they're growing much faster than a lot of people realize. It's FanDuel number one, it's DraftKings number two, and it's MGM number three. With MGM, their exposure to the NFL, their official sports book of the NFL, I think that's like the holy grail, in my opinion.
Yeah.
In America, that's the big one that you want, and for them to be the officially licensed sports book of the NFL, I think that's huge. If they can somehow move their way into another major sport such as baseball or something like that, even the NBA, which I think DraftKings is probably going to take that one. But either way, MGM is huge here, and I think that this could be the one to own if you only want to get into one.
Yeah, obviously it goes without saying, I love MGM. So to the point of Macau, and this will tie them together, but the great thing that MGM has done as a hedge, whether you believe Macau is going to be back or not, is they are looking into Japan. So Osaka, they put a $10 billion bid, and it looks like they're the leader for that bid to build a property on Osaka's essentially the competition to Macau and sort of the Eastern Hemisphere's Las Vegas, right?
Yeah.
Or bigger than that, because Macau is bigger than Las Vegas. But in that sense, Osaka could take over and could be the destination. And so I love this move. I think it allows them, they'll stay in Macau, but it allows them to further diversify, and they benefit off Vegas. They're not over leveraged in Macau, and now they get to take advantage of Japan. And I think Osaka is going to be a huge location.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about this move. My question to you is, What do you think? Do you think Osaka can be that, can take over Macau? And where do you think, what do you have to see from Macau before like you think it'll get back to where it was before?
I think that Osaka can um, at least create its own space. I don't think it's going to take over Macau. It's just so big. It's
Yeah.
just so big. But I think that Osaka could be bigger than Vegas. I think that's
Mhm.
for sure. A conversation worth having. So as far as that's concerned, yes, I think it's definitely going to work well for MGM. But as far as Macau it's concerned, I think that in general, the and we've talked about this a little bit before, but with like the Olympics going on and that sort of thing, and with them kind of getting a hold of COVID, and that's left to interpretation, especially with the communication that China has given us. But that, along with some of the, uh, I guess noise or lack thereof that
Yeah.
we've heard from them, I think that certainly bodes well for Macau, and I think it's going to work itself out eventually.
Yeah. I agree. It has to work itself out. There's too much money tied up.
Yeah,
And so hopefully travel restrictions open up, medications for COVID. So the things are working sort of how they need to work. Remains to be seen. There you guys have it. That's Brad's top 5 in order. Let us know what your 5 are. Put them in order. Let's know what you agree with, disagree with, what we miss. Another one. Bringing another one for you guys. So every week we try to bring you a pre-recorded video on a topic, top 5 stocks related. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Make sure you hit that thumbs up if you like that content. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for the next video. Thanks, guys.
have a good one. Bye.
Bye.